Lexie's Storytale Cakes. In this episode, we'll be making a Funfetti cake. So thanks to Charista for requesting this tutorial. It was actually her birthday last week, so happy birthday girl, hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I also haven't been making baking vids for quite some time, and that's because I've been away in Japan. I'll pop a link in the description box below if you want to check out the vlogs to see what we've been up to. So without further ado, let's make a story. So to make our Funfetti cake, we're going to start off with the dry ingredients first. You need 4 cups of sifted plain flour. Pop it in the bowl. 2.5 cups of sugar. So I like to use caster sugar because it's more fine and it makes your cake more smooth. You don't have to use caster sugar, but ideally, if you can purchase caster sugar, then get caster sugar. 1.25 teaspoon of baking powder. Then you just want to mix up all the dry ingredients so it's nice and incorporated. So you don't want to just like add dry and wet at the same time. You want to make sure the dry is all added and then add the wet afterward. That's nice and incorporated. Next up, I'm gonna add in 5 eggs. 400 milliliters of milk, mix it up. So once that's nice and incorporated, you can add in your butter. This is 330 grams of melted butter. Just make sure you like put it in the microwave and melt it a bit so it's liquidy, because if it's like chunky, it gets really hard to mix and you'll find like clunks in your batter. And I know as you mix this, you're gonna go like, why is it just like taking so long and it's not incorporating? But gradually as you mix it, it will come together. And the reason why I added butter at the end is because if you over mix butter, it makes the cake quite heavy. Right, that's looking pretty good. And next up, we're gonna add in 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla essence just to give it a pop of flavor. Gorgeous. So that is the beautiful consistency you want for your vanilla cake batter. When you make a Funfetti cake, it seems like you can just add in any sprinkles. There's different types of sprinkles here. If you see, there's like little ones, and then you have your sugar strands, which is not really saturated, but it still looks like long strands. Then you have ones that are quite saturated, but still thin. And you have the jimmies, which are nice and saturated and more thicker than the sugar strands. So I'm just gonna get a couple here to compare it for you. I know it's quite hard to tell the difference, but you can see this one is a lot thicker than this strand here. So originally when I did the test run, I did my vanilla cake and I added in some sugar strands, but it turned out like this. So all the colors pretty much faded away and turned blue. I think like it wasn't saturated enough, so definitely when you use Funfetti cakes, you need to ensure that you use like jimmy size, like a thick branded sprinkle. And the one I happen to use is Jimmy's mixed sprinkles, but I heard Wilton sprinkles work really well as well. So I want to thank Michelle and Rachel from the Cake Decorating Forum, because originally I posted this picture up in the forum and was like, oh guys, help, it turned out like this. And they actually told me to buy like more thicker sprinkles like this. And it turned out amazing. So really handy tip when making Funfetti cakes is sprinkles are crucial. Make sure you use like really nice and thick sprinkles, that they're really colorful as well and not too, you know, light in color tone. This part is really exciting because you can see all the colors come together, and I'm gonna add in 1/2 cup of sprinkles. And we're gonna just fold it. Don't over mix it because you don't want the colors to bleed. Although these sprinkles are quite good quality, so I don't even find them really bleeding if you over mix it. But with some brands, just be careful not to over mix it. That's good. Don't need to go any further than that. Leave it just like that. You want to then line 3 6-inch tins, and make sure you line the edges as well, because the cake will kind of like be too caramelized if you don't line the edges. I'm gonna divide the batter evenly. So now the batters have been divided evenly, you just want to pop it in the oven for 180 degrees and bake for 1 hour. Now we're going to make cream cheese frosting. I just prefer cream cheese frosting because I think it's like less sweet compared to buttercream. So I've got 250 grams of unsalted butter, and what you want to do first is have it at room temperature. So we beat the butter for 5 minutes, and now it's time to add in our cream cheese, which is also room temperature, and make sure to beat this for 5 minutes as well. What I like to do is I kind of like to just swish it down. It just makes it not splatter everywhere too much. And then kind of just mix it with your hands first. And once that's incorporated, you can turn it on. A low speed first. So once the cream cheese and butter is nice and incorporated, you want to add in 2 teaspoons of vanilla essence for that pop of flavor. Otherwise, it's going to be too cheesy. I've got here 5 cups of icing sugar. Yeah, so this is like diabetes, but guys, this is not like a diet show. So if you're gonna make a cake and you want it to taste good, just add in the sugar. I'm gonna add a little bit at a time. That's probably 1 cup. Because if you add it all at once, it's just gonna go and splatter all over your face. So when I first started baking, I just add everything in and then whip it up and it'll just fly everywhere. And literally the butter would fly out as well. So sometimes I like just mixing it without the beater on first, just in case it still flies out a bit. Then you just want to go slow speed. And see how it doesn't bush out. Is that even a word, bush out? Okay. Sometimes the icing gets stuck on the sides, so just use a scraper or a spoon to scrape it down and mix it up again. So in some countries you're blessed with white butter and your buttercream will just look nice and white, but in Australia our butter is like really yellow. So what we need to do is to add a little bit of white food dye, just so when you mix it up it goes a bit more white. I just beated it for about 10 minutes to get that nice texture, and it looks like a nice vanilla-y white colour now. Once your cake has been baked and chilled to room temperature, it's time to just slice the top part off because it looks a little bit like a hat right now. Just gonna slice it, get your hands away because you don't want to cut yourself. Woohoo! Check it out, look at all those colors. So the sprinkles really make a difference. Remember my original one? This was the old one. This was like the really old one with the incorrect sprinkles, and this one was with the right sprinkles. I'm just gonna like level it a little bit more. And I think I'm just gonna take, what do you guys do with the scraps? This is what I do. So just get some non-stick mat and place your cake plate on top. It just stops it from moving, and then I've also added this onto a turntable. Next up, I'm using some melted white chocolate just to stick here. And the reason why I use chocolate as opposed to buttercream is because chocolate will really stick the cake down and it won't even move on like a hot day. Give it a nice press. For the final part, instead of just adding this on top, you want to flip it around so you get a nice even surface. So I just added a little bit of frosting on the side to help me smooth it out. So it doesn't have to be perfect since this is just our crumb coat layer. What we need to do next is put this in the fridge until it's completely firm for about 20 minutes. After our cake has been chilled, you can see that it doesn't stick to your fingers. It's time to add in our final coat. So just take your spatula and move the frosting towards the center. Sprinkle all those goodness colors out and then just spread it out so you can add your cake on top. Once your cake is in place, just use your hand to kind of attach the sprinkles onto the buttercream. With the excess sprinkle, you can just add it all back into the mini tub. So as you can see, we didn't even use that much after we scooped it back up. So now we're gonna make our chocolate drips for the cake. We'll need 150 grams of white chocolate to 75 mils of thickened cream. So just pour that in and microwave this for about 30 seconds in intervals until it's nice and melted. You don't wanna overheat it because it might break the chocolate apart. So the chocolate's nice and melted. This was only 30 seconds into the microwave. Depends on how strong your microwave is, but you want it to be this consistency. Then you can just divide it into 3 bowls. So I have some pink, yellow and blue with a little bit of canola oil. So when you add in a little bit of gel color, you might want to add a little bit of oil so it doesn't seize the chocolate. But of course, if you've already got like oil candy colors, then you don't even need to worry about adding in oil. You can also add a little bit of oil to make it a bit more liquidy. Just a little bit. And then we're just going to repeat the same steps for the other colors. For yellow, the chocolate's already kind of yellow, so I literally didn't need much yellow at all. I'm going to add a little bit of oil. Not too much, just a little bit. You don't want to add too much because then it's going to become too runny as well. So the chocolate was left out a little bit too long, so I microwaved it to have that more runnier effect. Make sure it's also not too runny. I would say this one here is a little bit too runny. That's a little too runny, so I might let that set for a bit before I add it onto the cake. But this one here is quite a nice consistency because our cake is already cold, and when it hits the cake, it will dry. Adding the blue into a piping bag. You just want to snip off the end a little bit. You just add a little bit of pressure. So I'm just using a 1M Wilton piping tip and just adding it into a piping bag. Added all the excess cream cheese into our piping bag, and we're going to snip off the ends. Do this to get rid of any air bubbles as well as kind of just press it down. What we're going to do now is just take some of our leftover sprinkles and sprinkle it in the center. And just pipe it in a circular motion all around the cake. The next step is completely optional, but if you want to add a little bit more funfetti to your cake, you can do this. Just melt a bit of white chocolate. I've got here like some shortbread cookies. You can even just use normal cookies at the stores. It doesn't even have to be shortbread cookies. Just any size you'd like to match your cake. And then just dunk it in some white chocolate that's been melted down. Like this. And then just paste it onto your sprinkles. So you get that nice look like that. Once that's dried up, you then can use the other side and dunk it. And then just pop it in the sprinkles. You get this really nice funfetti cookie that can be used to decorate your cake. I think it looks quite nice in between piped edges, so I like putting it in between. But of course you can add it wherever you want. So there we have it, guys. That's a wrap for our funfetti cake tutorial. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Just remember to hit the bell notification so you get notified when new vids come out, and like and subscribe as well. I'll see you soon. So let's try this beast cake. A bit of cream.